Hello and welcome back to another ASMR video. My name's Josh. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're coming back, welcome back. I hope that you are well and I hope that you've had a good week, a good day. I sincerely apologise for not uploading for 10 days. As I said, I have been busy in real life and this video has taken some planning and some thinking rather than me just sitting down making mouth sounds. As you can see by the title, we are talking, well, I don't actually know what the title is just yet, but we are talking about the gender dynamics and the gender politics and a bit more about the sociology and like the structure of the ASMR content creation as a whole. This might seem like a random video, but I studied sociology at university and I found it so interesting, and I tend now to apply a sociological lens onto all aspects of life as you can. It's applicable. There's theories and frameworks which can be applied to everything: music, film, ASMR. So today we're going to be doing that. So it might be quite informative, but it's not me telling you what is the case. This is just what I think or what I've noticed and observed. I've created ASMR videos for like 7 or 8 years now, but for a year and a half with this account, and I've met some amazing people, done some amazing stuff. I've had a great time. So I am reading a script for this as I couldn't remember all of this. So here we go. First of all, before I get into this, I went to the University of West of England in UK for university. I studied sociology or psychology and I got a 2-1. I'm not claiming or trying to say that I'm a genius or I'm right or I'm wrong. There is no right answers in this sort of thing. I'm just, as I said, seeing what I've noticed, saying what I've seen. So, first of all, whilst I was studying sociology, something which we learnt about is the theory of gender performativity, which was created by Judith Butler. She's a sociologist, and that's her theory. It's the idea that humans have been conditioned and socialized to perform in a certain way, to perform their gender. An example of this would be girls wearing pink and boys wearing blue. It's a stereotype, of course, and I'm not saying that that's what I believe, but that, for example, has been conditioned through toys, films, music, media, and now we're playing a role, we're performing our gender, we're thinking, oh, I should wear pink because that's what boys do, that's what girls do, I should wear blue because that's what boys do. So it's like you do what you're expected to do of other people and you get rewarded for it. And if you don't conform to your gender performance, then you're ridiculed, and that's like you're not, like you're a tomboy or you're, I don't know, called queer or something like that. Like there's many different things, but it's shaped and enforced by those external people and internally as well. Now, I'm not saying that's right either, that's just what I've interpreted from this. Again, I don't want people in the comments saying like, oh, this is all rubbish, it's not true. Feel free to comment something down below if you disagree with me at all. So, but what I'm saying is that you're not really always in control of that. And then by the time you're an adult, you are fully conditioned and you're performing in these roles. So like my hair is short because boys' hair should be short. Ooh. Sorry, excuse me. Also, if you're interested, my dissertation was about the impact of cooking from scratch on romantic relationships on men aged 18 to 25. It's a very specific title, it has to be quite niche, so the research is easier to carry out. And I use gender performativity to analyse cooking in romantic relationships. I found that men act outside of their quote unquote traditional masculine expectations, like they're meant to be brave and strong, and the woman in a relationship in a traditional man and woman relationship would be to be nurturing and caring. That would be the woman's job. But when men speak about their cooking for their partner, they describe it as, I'm taking care of her, or I do it as a way to show my love and affection. And even cooking in general is seen as more traditionally like a female thing to do, not a male thing to do. There's a stereotype of women in the kitchen, women stay at home mom. So men doing that is stepping outside their gender roles, and taking care of their partner, which I thought was really interesting. Obviously it's not the case for every relationship. It's also just a good way to bond. So here we go. I haven't really got an argument as such as to what is going on in ASMR. It's more just I'm going to say some things and you can listen and relax and close your eyes and go to sleep. But here we go. Also, I am a man, I'm 22, I'm middle class from United Kingdom, so you have to take my perspective with a pinch of salt. Your views may be completely different. You may be a woman, you may be old, you may be younger than me, you may be better off, you may be worse off financially, you may have gone to university, you may have not. So again, we're all different. Just life is about listening to others and appreciating what they're saying to you, and just taking a bit of that and just thinking about it, because what I'm saying might not resonate with you, or it may resonate with you. So please feel free to give me feedback. First of all, what is ASMR before we get down into this talk of gender and things like that? ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. It is the tingling sensation you get. It's like a sensation of euphoria. It is also, socially, it is just taking care of someone, either in real life or digitally, like me to you right now, and making them feel calm and relaxed. Just caring for somebody, really. I mean, it can be doing a role play, making sounds, teaching somebody something. It can be unintentional, but it all comes back to that attentiveness. There's a slowness to it. Relaxing somebody, making them just feel warm and present, calm and relaxed, taking someone out of their current situation if they're stressed or tired or whatever it may be. So I just want you to think about that, and what is ASMR to you? Because to me it's all of those things, and it's also a hobby, an interest, potentially a career path at some point, which is crazy because a year and a half ago I hadn't made an ASMR video for a year, 2 years. I hadn't even thought of it. I hadn't watched it for years, and then I was just like, let's do this. And here we are now, 3,700 subscribers, 68,000 TikTok followers, and a changed life. I am so happy and grateful for all of you, so thank you so much. But yeah, so it's that quietness, the patience, caring, nurturing. So now we can discuss gender roles. These are stereotypes and not my own thoughts. I'm just stating stereotypes. Traditionally, a man is meant to be strong, confident, dominating, powerful, not very emotional, not cold, but because of that lack of emotion, they are come across as quite cold sometimes. And women are meant to be more kind, compassionate, nurturing, emotional, just like caring for somebody, like they raise children, they provide for families, whilst the man would be expected to bring money into the family financially. That is like the traditional role of man and woman in relationships. Obviously that is shifting greatly and massively, and good it should. These rigid gender roles are something very old-fashioned, and quite frankly they don't fit the society we have now. Men and women both work. It's not men aren't at war, women aren't. I mean, in some countries men are at war, but traditionally men aren't fighting wars, and women aren't staying at home raising kids, or men aren't working to bring home the bacon, and women stay at home to care for the kids and whatnot. First of all, it doesn't work in a capitalist society. Things have gone up in price, inflation, rising rent prices, housing crisis, cost of living crisis. The majority of people in the world cannot afford to live off of one income, so both parties have to work. Children get raised in nurseries or by other family, friends, etc. But traditionally, the role of the woman is to be caring and emotional. Now, taking that in consideration, what does ASMR expect or ask from its creators? Obviously, ASMR isn't a person, it's not a thing, it's a feeling, but ASMR content requires someone to be slow and calm and quiet, which is something traditionally very female, to take care and to nurture of people. And I think that is reflected in the number of ASMR creators which are female. From what I've seen, there does seem to be a vast number more female creators than there is male creators. And there seems to be more very popular creators which are female. I get comments saying, "Oh, you're the only male ASMR creator I watch." And that's something I see in a lot of male creators' comments, is that they are like an exception. They are like, "Wow, you're so good that I watch you." And it's always in high regard. It's rare to find a man who I can watch ASMR and you send me to sleep. And they're sort of breaking gender roles, which is interesting because, as I said before, men cook for their partners and they care for them. So why is it still a surprise in 2026 that men are creating ASMR or men are cooking for their partners? It really shouldn't be the case, but there are certain demographics which perpetuate stereotypes, and it seems to be quite difficult to escape those. I've said quite a lot in this video, but for females and women, this creating ASMR content is not something which is seen as different for them. They're not breaking gender stereotypes, they are just doing what would be expected as them. And that's reflected in the numbers. There's more creators, they are more successful. Obviously you have outliers like Jojo ASMR, who is one of the largest creators, and he is a man. But overall, let me just quickly scroll down on my notes here. So what I'm saying is about gender performativity is men and women are conditioned, they expect each other to perform in a certain way and they perform those roles. So men creating ASMR they're an outlier to their gender roles, and they're not carrying out the traditional things they should be doing. So they get ridiculed for it. Sometimes I've had people make fun of me. They're like, "Why are you doing that? I've been told that's gay to do." There's absolutely nothing gay about whispering or wanting to make people feel calm and relaxed. I mean, that's a whole nother debate. People being homophobic for no reason, or describing things as gay, which have no intrinsic gay qualities. I mean, what even is a gay quality apart from being attracted to the same sex? Like sexuality, I think gender is also on a spectrum where you can be on certain wavelengths, especially for like roles of gender. Like they're interchangeable. They're not the same thing. Like men don't work and women don't cook. Like they're not the same thing. Like you do each of them. People do all of them. Women play football, men knit and sew. Do you know what I mean? Like this may sound really rambling. I feel like I've not got a clear structure, but I feel like maybe making sense. And I also see this sometimes reflected in the type of content that people make as well. Male creators will often try and make their roleplay a bit more manly, like a car garage, and of course they're just their interests, but it's interesting to see that like the interests, they are gendered. Well, of course they are, though. It's how the world works, but I think it's interesting to just be aware of it. Okay, let's see what else we have here. But yeah, so it seems almost women are doing what's expected of them, and they don't get the praise as much as men do, I don't think, for creating ASMR, because it's like that's what's expected of them. Like there's pioneers of ASMR, like ASMR Darling, GB ASMR. They are amazing, and sometimes I think the way they're treated in their comments, obviously they get really good comments, and this may just be me from looking over briefly. I haven't watched them properly for a long time. When I see men ASMR creators, like they just get more of like, oh, you're the only one I watch, like it's an exception to be good. And female creators don't get that like praise almost as such, because it's expected of them. Like, oh yeah, of course, like you're creating ASMR, you're a girl. And I don't know, I really don't even know what my point is of that. I think it's just a case of there's things that are expected of certain genders, and it's just interesting to observe. Like men and women both make great ASMR. Okay, now emotional labour is labour you do which you don't get paid for, and it's like emotionally taxing. So traditionally women take on a lot of the emotional labour in a relationship. Okay, let's see what we have here about this. Yeah, like even things like when someone says to a woman, smile more, or you need to smile, there's more of an expectation on women to carry out this emotional labour. But this is like ASMR is providing warmth to people, it's making them relaxed. So again, women are carrying out more emotional labour, but they are obviously getting rewarded financially, or they can be. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing they're doing this, it's a good thing they get paid. It's just interesting that ASMR is so dominated by women, and yeah, like I don't even know how this comes across. Ooh. Sorry about that. It's also kind of a good thing, because it's like for centuries women have been conditioned to be this emotional and emotionally supportive person in a relationship, and now they can do this online and get financially rewarded, which is good. There's also a change in dynamic as well with people viewing ASMR. Men have always been told to toughen up and like man up, but now you have a generation 20, maybe 30 downwards, I don't know how the main demographic of ASMR is younger people, of men who are being vulnerable and seeking like ASMR for anxiety, or ASMR I can't sleep, or like ASMR positive affirmations. And partly, and also women obviously are doing that as well, and I think some of that even comes down to how society is. We are more connected but less connected. We are following thousands of people on social media and online, but we have less face-to-face contact, we do less things, we have less intimacy. I think people are seeking connection in the way that they know now, like one of those ways being through ASMR. I don't know how you feel our relationship is, but I don't know you, I don't know your name, but you may have formed a parasocial relationship with me. You might think you know me, and you might think maybe we're friends, but you don't know me, I don't know you. I really don't even know what I am talking about now, to be honest. Now, another thing I want to talk about is appearance and beauty standards. And this may sound rude to some people, and I'm not trying to sound rude. This is just an observation I've made, and something which seems to be present, is very obviously present in real life. There's a much higher expectation on women to be good looking than there is on men. I think men get away too easily with ridiculing women for like taking too much care in their appearance. No, wait, does that make sense? That's not right. Like, men expect women to look good all the time for them, and there's less of an expectation on men to look good, maybe. I mean, more so it's coming into play where there is a lot of men with self-esteem and body issues, of course, but talking more just facially, female ASMR creators, like the more famous ones, seem to be held to a higher standard. It seems that to be a female, like a top ASMR creator, that's a woman, you must be beautiful and pretty, have clear skin, be well put together, things like that. But for a male creator to get to the top, your appearance doesn't matter as much, which is not fair, because why should women be held to that level? And the same can be seen in the music industry and acting and film. Female singers and actors, their weight is brought into discussions and debates about them. Lizzo, for example. But male singers, that same thing doesn't happen. Their weight is not discussed constantly. And this one I really don't understand. But then when you zoom out a bit and you look at it as how society was, men and women get married and the woman becomes the property of the man. When you look at it like that, and from maybe like that perspective, you can kind of begin to understand why these things are happening and why they don't go away quite as quickly as we would like them to. And because in that marriage, that like binding contract as such, women have been the object of like what people want, and historically women were traded to their partner, like you can marry our daughter if we get your land, or something like that. And the woman takes the man's surname. Traditionally they are the property of the man. And this next thing I'm going to mention isn't a nice thing to say, but even until I think in the last 30 years, it's probably more recent than that, rape within a marriage was not illegal. Like, it was hard to prosecute because it was the right to have intercourse with your partner if you were a man and your wife didn't want to have sex, which is so messed up. And I don't know if you realise how recent that law was changed. It's easy to look at what we have now and be like, oh, like it's society is how it should be, like it's always been the case, but that's not the case. The civil rights movement was not that long ago. Gay marriage was not legalised that long ago. The right to vote for women was not that long ago, but things progress and things need to change. Things like beauty standards and appearance standards. And I'm not saying I want more men to be insecure about their appearance. Women shouldn't be insecure about their appearance. Men shouldn't be insecure about their appearance. But you cannot hold each gender to different standards. It is not right. It's not fair. And it's rooted in sexism and the patriarchy and just misogyny, because women are seen as objects. Men are not. Men are not viewed as objects. It's like in the Barbie film. I don't know if you watch Barbie. Barbie is a great film for this. Obviously, it's simplified in the film, and some people maybe don't agree with the film, but I think it's very great at showing like the patriarchal system of the world right now, and how men have it easier than women. And as a man, you can say, often when I see posts about stuff like that, there's always like a video stitch, and it's like a statistic about male suicide rates. And of course, this is awful. Suicide should not be an option for anybody, man, woman, anyone. But these things are perpetuated by a patriarchal society. Men are to blame for male suicide rates. And it's the same way that men are blamed for female body augmentation, like the surgeries that get bought like that. Those are driven by the system we have in place through capitalism, through the patriarchy. This is what I think anyway, and these might be wrong and you might disagree with me. Obviously men's mental health matters, that's not what I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't want it to seem like that at all. I'm a man. I've got all my friends are men. I've got women friends as well. But it's like, I don't actually even know what I'm going on a tangent for. I'm just saying that beauty standards and things like that, they are perpetuated by men. When women are over-sexualized, they are viewed as objects. You treat women as objects and they will behave as objects. And I don't think women, but no, that's going to sound really, some people won't even be aware of what has happened to them in their life until they reach a certain age, or they have like an epiphany and they realize like, wow, I've been like performing my gender for other people, for men, and the simple things like smiling or not causing a scene, that like women do sometimes, and they won't even realize, they won't be aware that it's because of men. And the system, it seems to be changing, which is good. I did a module, appearance and embodiment at university, and there was a lot about like male appearance-based issues is what I was intrigued about, because I found, obviously, of course, psychology is a female-dominated university subject. I mean, that was, in the lectures there was maybe 10 blokes to 100 women. Maybe that. I think there was like 5 boys in my whole course of sociology, for example. And we were doing research and in the modules there was one lecture about men's appearance issues to 15 female lectures. And now that could be because there's less people researching on men, or it could be because there's more issues with female appearance based worries, things like that. I mean, I'd say it's probably a mixture of both, but there's definitely more that needs to be done appearance wise and insecurity wise for both genders, I don't think. And a lot of it comes down to, I know I am rambling so much, so I hope you've fallen asleep by now, because I'm probably making no sense. A lot of it comes down to what you're being sold as well. Capitalism does not necessarily breed innovation, it breeds greed and profit seeking at the expense of anything, whether that's the mental health of your customers or their physical health, or just like even the entire planet, the climate of the planet, the existence of humanity, things like that. We're seeing that with AI data centers using up lots of water. I'm completely rambling now. This is waffling. also, anything I want to say, I just want to preface again that I'm not saying any of this is true or false or anything. That's what I've noticed. But then also, this next topic is about over-sexualization of female creators. And it's gotten to a point now where I think it has gotten worse. When I started watching ASMR, of course there was people who were watching it for sexual gratification, and you can't get rid of that. Of course there's always going to be people like that with anything in the world, but more so when I'm scrolling on TikTok and it's like a female ASMR artist, and she's like created a video, she's put in effort to make a video, and the comments are about the content she's made, like the ASMR, yes, but there's countless vulgar, disgusting comments about her appearance or her body. And yes, male creators get that. Very, very occasionally I will get comments on my post saying you're hot, or I'd let you do me, or whatever it is. But it's so far and few in between that it's not even comparable. I have creators I'm friends with on TikTok who are women, and the DMs they get are disgusting. Just absolutely revolting. I don't even know if some people are aware of it, but I mean there's people who create ASMR who aren't 18 and they'll be still getting comments like that. No one should be getting comments like that. Of course you can't stop people from commenting things like that or thinking things like that, but there needs to be, I think, more awareness brought to it, because that does not happen on such a large scale to men. It does happen to women, and it goes back to what I was saying about marriage, how the woman becomes the object of the man. I don't think people realise women are so massively seen as objects by such a large number of men and even other women, and they're not aware of it. And it's hard to be aware of something if you don't know about certain things, I think, maybe. But it's just like, yeah, just really bad. And of course there's some creators who will lean into this and make sexual content, like sexual ASMR content, and that's neither good nor bad. That's up to them what they want to do. Because as I say, like, there's always going to be people seeking out that sort of content. So if you're making it, you're not doing anything wrong. You're taking back, like, you're kind of just doing what is happening potentially to you anyway, and you're monetizing it. And you can argue that it perpetuates it, maybe. It's like when you talk about, like, Bonnie Blue, for example. You could say that she perpetuates men objectifying women and seeing them as objects. But when Bonnie Blue did the video, and this isn't my quote, it's not even a quote, but this is not what my original thought, I saw this online. Bonnie Blue filmed her video of 100 men or whatever it was. 100 men were in that queue for one Bonnie Blue. You cannot blame people creating content. It's supply and demand. There's balance in those things. I don't know, to be honest, really. But yeah, the comments I've spoken about, and with like female domination of ASMR and male creators and stuff like that, I think there's also other things which come into effect. There's tones of voice, people prefer different things like that. That's why there's different gaps. There's gender gaps in consumption of ASMR, different niches of ASMR. But I think ASMR does provide a space for people to break out of their gender roles, but also as a good point of reference for people to look at and think and notice what is wrong with how society is currently, and like things that could be changed. things that need addressing. This is probably such a rambly video which makes no sense, and I have not meant to offend anyone. If I have, I don't know what I've said. Looking back now, I can't remember what I've said, but I really hope I've not offended anyone or upset anyone about this. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it didn't upset you too much or anything like that. And I will see you later. Sorry for the long wait again. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I don't regret making this and it's not going to backfire massively. I don't know. I don't know how people are going to take this, because it's what I'm thinking about. It's always interesting when you voice an opinion. It's not, I guess it's an opinion. When you voice an opinion, it's always interesting to see what the response is. But anyway, I'll see you later.